Welcome to the Travel Squad podcast, where adventure meets inspiration. We're your hosts. I'm Brittany.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Jamal. Together we explore international destinations, hike epic national parks, and share unforgettable travel experiences with you, one passport stamp at a time.
Our mission is to inspire you to travel by showing you how you can make it work no matter your budget, schedule, or experience level.
We bring you along so that you can laugh, get excited, and start planning your own trip.
So grab your ticket and your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And get ready to embark on a new adventure with us around the globe. Hello, fellow travelers.
Hey, squaddies.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Travel Squad podcast. Today, we are taking you to Seoul, South Korea. We spent 2 nights in Seoul as a quick stopover between our stops from Hong Kong to Tokyo, and we hit the ground running to pack a ton in. I personally wanted to visit another country on our trip since we had already been to China before and Japan, the other stops on this trip. And I also really wanted to visit the DMZ area, and this gave us the opportunity to visit it.
And even though our trip to South Korea was short, like you said, Brittany, we packed in as much as we could and really enjoyed our time here. So much so that Brittany is really in love with South Korea. She's telling me she's already ready to go back. She was telling it to me while we were there. And I enjoyed it, but I'm not like in love. But when I really think back on the experience, I enjoyed it enough. You know, if we hearken back to our Singapore episode and you asked Kim, would we ever go again? And I said, yeah, if we're going to Asia and we do it as a stopover, but I wouldn't go out of my way. That's how I think I feel about South Korea. But the more I think about it, the more I say to myself, yeah, I'd go back and do more. But Brittany's like real hard on it. She loved her time here.
Well, I would like to go back with you when you go. I want to go there.
To Seoul?
To South Korea in general. I want to do like beauty treatments and get all the skincare and see all the things, like eat bibimbap.
Yep, we can do that. So next time we go to Asia, Kim, you better hop on that airplane.
But I just want to say real quick before we get into this episode, if you remember back just to our more recent episode on Hong Kong, we were with our friends Kasha and Ryan. They did not come with us. They left Hong Kong the same day, but they got a jump start on Tokyo and Japan. So it's just me and Brittany here for this portion.
And if you listened to our episode last week where we talked about Hong Kong, I gave a little spoiler that Jamal had a freak out in South Korea.
I didn't have a freak out. You just annoyed me, Brittany, and it came out. But, you know, we'll get to that when it happens.
So tell me a little bit about Seoul in South Korea.
So Seoul is the capital of South Korea. It has a population of 9.4 million people. So it's smaller than New York City in terms of size, but it does have 1 million more people. So it is a really metropolitan, compact city in that way. And then Seoul sits along the Han River, which is a bustling hub of culture, technology, fashion, and history. And it is really, really close to North Korea. I mean, you look at things on a map and sometimes things on a map look really close and they happen to be farther. But when you look at a map of the Koreas and you see Seoul looking really close to North Korea, it really, really is. So not too far off on that. And of course, Seoul does have a lot of historical sites like the Bukchon Hanok Village, which we're going to talk about when we get to that point in time when we made our visit. And of course, who doesn't know about K-pop culture going on right now, or K-culture in general, with its K-pop music, films, dramas, fashion, etc. So it is a quirky city in that way, in a good way, right? You know, like Japan's known for Harajuku and that sort of culture within. Seoul has that type of culture just as well that gives it this fun uniqueness to it that we really enjoyed.
Give me some tips for Seoul, Korea.
So it's a big metropolitan city, so make sure you book a hotel near a metro line. We stayed at a Moxie Hotel, which is part of the Marriott brand, and we were literally right outside of a metro station, so it was perfect.
I love a Moxie Hotel. They're very cute.
They're very fun. Yeah, ours had a rooftop bar.
This was our first time staying at a Moxie. I wasn't really familiar with this chain division of the Marriott collection. We are staying at a Moxie again when we are in Amsterdam, coming up soon, only when we're really in transit. But nevertheless, we're going to be staying at one. So we'll see how it compares. But it was really fun and cool here in Seoul. Another tip, we mention this all the time now when it comes to international travel, is get yourself an eSIM if you do not have international data that's included with your cell phone provider. We really like Airalo. A lot of times when we travel with our friends who don't have international data plans like we do with T-Mobile, they use Airalo. It just gives them the service to be able to utilize maps, other types of directions, and things that you would need while you're out exploring the city. And we're going to go ahead and link the Airalo link in the show notes here for you guys also.
Just like Hong Kong had the Octopus card, Seoul has their own type of card called the T-Money card. And so if you plan to be in the city for more than 2 days, you're going to want to get one of these cards. You could get them at 7-Elevens, and they work on the metros, buses, taxis. And so make sure you get one of those. We did not get one because we were only there for 2 nights. So we paid for cash for the metro and used an app that they have, kind of like their Uber, called Kakao T app for their ride sharing. So we use that instead, but everyone talks about getting the T-Money card.
And then give yourself extra time for transportation because you'll likely get lost or it will take you longer to figure things out. What do I mean by that? Is you could look at something, it could be very close, but like you mentioned, Brittany, we used a lot of taxis and ride shares through the Kakao app because at least for where we were going, even though we were right by a metro station, even though their metro system is very robust and comprehensive, at least where we're going, the metro lines didn't take us close to there or as close as it got, still involved a large walk. So we're like, well, at this point, it's just easier to take the taxi or the ride sharing through the Kakao app. And the Kakao app, as good as it is, especially if where you're going is not near a metro spot, it is a hard app to use. Not that it's not intuitive, so to speak, because of course you can figure it out. But a lot of times if you put where you're going in English in that app, it's not really going to read well for you. So you need to know what it's called in Korean or copy paste the Korean characters. It doesn't give you a good pin drop location feature like Uber or Lyft does. So if you can't find the name of the place that you want to go, you can find some place that's actually close and tap that, but you can't actually drop the pin. So it's just a little finagling around, which is where I think Brittany is going to say the freak out came from later when that arises, is me playing around with that app. So I'm just going to preface it that way. So just give yourself some extra time because you may get lost or have difficulties playing around with that app to finally get to where you need to go and get those directions in appropriately.
And usually I would say download Google Maps, but Google Maps does not work well in Seoul. And so you can't even download the area onto the map. If you want to use it, you can only use the transportation button for it. You can't use the car function. You can't use the walking function. So you have to use Navermap or Kakao Maps. So I downloaded one, Jamal downloaded the other, and we used our brains to figure out where we were going in the city. So just keep that in mind.
Hey, Squatties, we're about to go into what we did in these 2 days in Seoul, South Korea. We do have a downloadable PDF itinerary of this exact trip that has in detail the route to take, the time traveling between each place, costs for transportation, what to do, how much time to spend there, where to eat, where to stay. All of that is in this itinerary and it is linked in our show notes. You can also find it at shoptravelsquad.com.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So we left Hong Kong at around 12:35 and we landed in Korea at 5:05 at the Incheon airport, which is about an hour and a half away from where we were staying. So it does take quite a bit of time to get from the airport to the main downtown areas. And there are 2 airports in Seoul, and we flew into one, flew out of the other, and they both take a long time to get to. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and so from the airport to our hotel, we took the Airport Railroad Express, or abbreviated RX, to Seoul Station, which is the main central train station transportation hub within the city. And from there, we caught a 8-minute cab ride to our hotel. And it took about an hour and 10 minutes for just the train portion to Seoul Station. So even though they call it the Airport Railroad Express, it does take a long time to get where you're going just because the Incheon Airport is so far outside of the city center. So just do know that going into it, you're not going to get to where you want to go as quick as you would think with a name like Express in the name for you. And then if you are flying into the other airport in Seoul, which is the Gimpo Airport, they do have metro lines that go to and from the airport, as well as an Airport Railroad Express line. So you have more options if you're flying in and out of Gimpo versus if you're flying in or out of Incheon. You really are going to be taking the train to the station on the Airport Railroad Express, and then from there having to figure out your transportation otherwise.
We only spent 2 nights in Seoul, and like I mentioned earlier, we stayed at Hotel Moxie. It had a really cute rooftop bar. It was right outside of the metro line, and it was walkable to several of the sites that we were going to, and it's part of the Marriott system, and we are Marriott loyalists, so it was nice to have that option there.
This stay got us to gold, Kim. We are now gold members. Ooh. Yeah. So we are outside of silver. We are upgraded to gold after this stay at Hotel Moxie. But by the time we landed, made our way through immigration, got to our hotel, it was...
Wait, you forgot something. While we were getting out of the airport, there was like a news reporter and tons of people lined up.
And tons of cameras too.
And cameras and everything. And people were waiting for signatures and selfies. And so I got in line and I took a selfie with a famous Korean person, but we don't know who he is. And our tour guides didn't know who he was either. But there was cameras, people were getting autographs, people were getting selfies, and I didn't want to miss out.
You should use Google image search to find out who it is.
Oh, I tried to put it in there and it's coming back with nothing.
What?
Nothing.
Who is this mystery man?
I don't know. And even our tour guide, when we went to the DMZ, we asked her, she said she didn't know. She said she'd ask her friends and around. She took a photo. She never got back to us on that. As great a tour guide as she was, that's the one area where I would say she slacked, but I can't really expect, too much if no one responded to her. But nobody knew, but yet there was press crew out there for this person, cameras upon arrival, everyone waiting for autographs, gawking, and we don't know who this person is. So we met some sort of Korean celebrity that we are unaware of. So yes, that is our airport experience before we had left. But by the time we checked into our hotel, made our way through, it was relatively late in the evening, and Brittany and I, of course, one of our favorite things to do when we go and travel is eat food. I know it sounds so silly, but in Korea, they're famous for their Korean fried chicken. It's known to be extra crunchy. The interior is super tender and juicy. It's typically double fried, so it gives it that incredibly crisp and light texture. And of course, lots of different flavorings in the batter or different sauces. So all of the Korean fried chicken places are usually chains. There are several chains out there, and we were trying to decipher where we're going to go to. One of the top 3 that came up was a place called Kayo-chan. It happened to be very close to our hotel. So we're like, all right, it's late. Let's go to Kayo-chan. And that was our first Korean fried chicken experience.
Yeah, so we decided to get 3 different flavors. We went with a soy garlic, which is their signature flavor, a spicy one, and a honey one. I really liked all 3 flavors, but the spicy was really spicy. But before you get your fried chicken, they typically give you popcorn as a snack. So this popcorn was like a 5-spice seasoning popcorn that you just snack on before your fried chicken comes out.
It was pretty good. And Korean fried chicken, I'm just going to say it. I love to have a beer when I travel. It pairs really well with a beer. I love Asian beers. They're so light, they're so crisp, refreshing, way different than American style lagers. I just love them. So be sure to go ahead and get a beer. And what I really liked about Kyochon and a lot of places that we ate at in South Korea is when you order, it's on a computer screen at your table. You don't really have a waiter who's coming up to you. It will give you a menu selection of a language you prefer. Of course, English is on there. And I really like that because I feel like, and again, we were in Hong Kong first. We're going to get to Japan a little bit later, not in this episode, but we've been to Japan before. We knew a lot of people know English or enough to go ahead and get around if you need to order. I felt like in Korea that wasn't really the case. Not a lot of people spoke English well for the amount of tourists that it gets, but of course it's on us too for not knowing Korean, but it makes it very simple because a lot of the ordering process is via computer screen at your own table, which is really cool. So just order what you want and you have your images there, makes it very simple. So you don't really need to worry about that language barrier when you're here.
So that's all we really had time for that night, was to get settled, get dinner, go to bed, because the next day we were having a full day in Seoul and going to the DMZ area in the morning. It was a 6-hour tour starting at 7 a.m. We had to be outside the metro station at 7 a.m. So we had to be picked up even earlier than that.
Can I say something before we move too far on to DMZ here and get really taken away with it, Brittany? When are you going to say I had the freak out? Because I feel like we passed it and we didn't address it. And I usually like to skip these things because I think you're over-exaggerating, but I feel like it's been talked about now. And I would say that was the first freak out once we got to Seoul Station. Or are you referencing another time?
Oh, you had a bigger freak out when we were trying to get back to the hotel on our last day.
Okay. Well, point being, when we got from
Let's talk about that one too.
Well, we don't need to talk about it. I'll just preface it in a very, very simple way. This is where I first discovered that the Keiko app to utilize the Uber was very difficult to use and not very friendly in that way and takes a little bit of time. So when we got off the airport express train to Seoul Station and we were going to take the cab rideshare, I was utilizing that. It was very difficult to find out. You can't do a pin drop. We were really trying to find out what exit we need to go out of. That way it already had me listed in a spot, wouldn't let me move it unless I put in a physical location. We looked outside, couldn't find those physical locations that were seen on the map. So that kind of caused a little bit of an issue, and where I would say maybe Brittany is thinking I had a freak out. But again, all narrows down to that Keiko app. So just not very user-friendly. Be cautious with it. But yes, DMZ day 2.
Yeah, so we were starting our day with the DMZ tour. They have full day tours, they have half day tours. We decided to go with the half day tour because we wanted to get the most out of our trip and not just spend the whole day on a tour and be able to see other things in the city. So the DMZ stands for the Demilitarized Zone, and it's a historically significant area that separates North Korea and South Korea, and it's serving as a buffer zone in between the two countries.
So it stretches approximately 160 miles from west to east, of course, throughout the entire land border of North and South Korea. And the demilitarized zone is 2.5 miles wide and one of the most heavily guarded borders in the world. So that 2.5 miles, that would make it 1.25 miles of demilitarized zone on the north side and 1.25 demilitarized zone on the South Korean side. So realistically, the Koreas, North and South, are still at war. When it actually ended, they didn't really have a peace agreement. It was just a truce. So they are still actively at war. And one of the things of the truce agreement is to say within this demilitarized zone, there's going to be really no military buildup or aggression. Of course, they have soldiers there that patrol, guard it, but it's not really anything where they allow certain types of weaponry, tanks, and other stuff for potential escalation.
And so we got on a bus. We had a tour guide. Her name was Julie. Julie was a phenomenal tour guide. She was so knowledgeable. She was so friendly, so nice. She had the perfect Korean skin, that glass skin look, and it was just amazing. So really loved her and her tour.
You were talking about wanting to go to Korea for those beauty products and all that stuff, Kim. She does beauty products tours. Not only does she do the DMZ, she'll do like K-culture, K-pop tours. She'll do beauty tours, taking you to all the spots. And even, Brittany will probably get to this, one of the places that we stopped along the way in the DMZ that has a shop, it's not fully makeup, but they have a makeup section. And she gave all the girls who wanted it a tutorial of all the skincare stuff that she specifically uses. And Brittany said it. She had just beautiful glowing skin. I noticed it right away. I'm not going to deny it. Brittany knows this. I had a little crush on Julie. She was a little cutie and she had a personality to match with it. So yeah, if you're lucky enough to get Julie on a guided tour, it's going to be great. I would go back out to just do another tour with Julie.
I bet you would.
And we have her contact information. So if you are looking for a tour with Julie, let us know and we'll send that info to you. But she started the bus ride with a 10-minute history lesson on South Korea. And then she did another 10-minute history lesson on the DMZ. And then we did 4 stops within this tour. So the first stop we did was to a park called the Imjinggak Park. And we started with learning about the history here, seeing the statues of the comfort women. Do you know what that is, Kim?
No.
During the war, when the Japanese invaded Korea, they would use women for their soldiers to sleep with. And they were like 10 to 12 years old at the time. And so they have statues representing that. Even though Japan, and this is what Julie said, and Korea have a good relationship, they're still waiting for an official apology from Japan for doing this to their people. And there are just about 7 comfort women still alive after this has happened. So we saw their statues. We saw the peace train, which is the last train that had crossed between North and South Korea. And we saw some other memorials while we were there.
Yeah, so at this park, they just have a lot of stuff. It's really a peace park, so to speak, just telling the history of the war, things that led up to it, and of course, just the hope for reunification at some point in time. So that was really interesting to see. When you get a history perspective, when you go someplace, I know a lot of people don't like history, but I think when you travel, it lends itself to give you a really great perspective of where you're at, significance of things. So this park really has a lot of that, and you will learn a lot by making this stop here. But then afterwards, we went to the Dora Observatory, and this is the northernmost point along the western side of the Korea's north and south that you can actually get from within South Korea to North Korea. So from here, you can actually be in this observation building that looks right into North Korea. So this is the closest that we're actually going to get to it. They do have a further observation level on top that's open aired. You used to be able to take photos, but apparently there's flare up of tensions going on right now. And this is something that I learned too in the DMZ. Even though, of course, you're going to find soldiers from the north and south, it's controlled by the United Nations. And for whatever reason, the United Nations has deemed it that you can't take photos into North Korea right now for whatever reason. I don't know why, but nevertheless, we weren't able to do that. They even have signs up that say they'll prosecute you if you do. So I didn't want to take the risk, but she said that was relatively recent. Julie had photos that she's taken. She's like, give me your number. I'll WhatsApp it to you guys, whoever wants it. But regardless, from this observation, you get to see, and this is the closest that you're going to get to North Korea. And you hear what you hear in the news, and it's just such a unique perspective to say, wow, this is really what's going on the other side. You can see their propaganda villages and cities that they build to make it look like, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Julie even admitted, yeah, even the South Koreans built a propaganda village over here. I forgot what she said the specific purpose was of that one, but they build stuff up in this region to kind of just show each other up. But then South Korea put in a large South Korean flag, of course, on their side. North Korea didn't want to be done up. So then you're standing here and you see the largest North Korean standing flag that there is in the world, just right there along the border. And it's a really unique perspective because where else are you going to see a North Korean flag fly unless you're in North Korea or along the DMZ, right? They usually don't participate in the Olympics or other world events. So I thought it was a unique perspective to see a flag fly of a country that you're probably never going to see anywhere else, which I thought was cool.
We could also see the joint security area, although we could not go to it. It actually previously used to be open for tours, but since the American soldier went a little AWOL and crossed into North Korea from that tour that happened in 2023, they are not allowing anyone to go into that area anymore at this time.
Yeah, so the joint security area, if you're unfamiliar with that is, if anyone watches the news and sees stuff when they show, oh, North, South Korea, there's a bunch of buildings that are actually along the border of North and South. So half the building is in North Korea, half the building is in South Korea. And of course, they will have meetings with delegations within those meetings. And of course, that's where the famous scene took place when Trump was president during his first term, where he met Kim Jong-un and he crossed into North Korea along the stone brick border that they have right there, and he walked across into it. That's the joint security area. And so like Brittany said, they used to be able to do tours there. That used to be the closest, but an American went and ruined it because he was wanted and going to be turned in by the South Koreans for doing some crazy stuff, and he was going to be tried in military prison. Didn't want that, decided to defect to North Korea, and the North Koreans sent him back to the U.S. anyway. But ever since that, they were like, if you can't control people on your side, we're not doing it. So hopefully it opens again one day, because I think it'd be really cool to go there and like just put your foot on the line, you know? But now you can't get any closer to it than where we were at that observation tower.
When we got up to this observation deck, you could hear music. And we were asking Julie about that. Well, South Korea broadcasts K-pop dramas, K-pop music into North Korea. And as a response, North Korea broadcasts a screeching noise to cancel out South Korea's broadcast. So that's another one of their fights that they have going on. Also, North Korea has been filling up a whole bunch of balloons filled with garbage and sending them towards South Korea. So when they pop over South Korea, a whole bunch of garbage comes out of these really large balloons.
Oh my God.
So they're having little border tiffs, and you got to see it firsthand. We didn't get to see any of the balloons, but we did hear them blasting the music into the north side just to aggravate them. And of course, we didn't hear any of the screeching sounds, but they are sending those signals back over to the south to just annoy them and try to cancel out the K-pop that they're sending over their way.
Is it mostly the governments that don't get along, or do the people of North and South Korea also not get along?
Well, you're not even allowed to go back and forth. If you're a South Korean, you can't go into North. And clearly, if you're North, you for sure can't even leave North Korea in general, even to Russia, China, which are other bordering countries, or South. And that's one of the things that we learned on the tour too, is that they still have families that are separated. So I wouldn't say that the people themselves don't get along. Of course, a lot of times it's always the governments, right? It doesn't even have to be the Koreas. You could look into anything. Really, it's the governments that create that friction amongst the people, if there is any. But the people, at least from what we're hearing from Julia on the South side, want reunification because they still have family members that are on that side. And she was saying, what was it, in the 70s or 80s, they did
a documentary called like 30 Years Lost, where they had people talk about losing family members, and they were actually able to reunite families that had lost like 30 years together.
And telling their stories and writing letters. And I think there was some sort of just momentary connection that they allowed, but then they stopped doing that. So I think the people themselves get along. It's just really, of course, government.
Mm-hmm.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Our third stop of the tour was going to the third infiltration tunnel. So you can't bring a bag or take pictures in the tunnel, but it's only 27 miles north of Seoul. And this incomplete tunnel was discovered in October of 1978 because a guy that worked in the tunnels crossed from North Korea into South Korea and spilled all of the secrets and said North Korea is building all of these tunnels to try to invade Seoul. So he told the South Korean government where they were. South Korea responded by putting up a whole bunch of water pipes so that when North Korea hit them, they would explode and be able to find exactly where the tunnels were. So this is the third one that they found. And the tunnel's about a mile long. It's only about 6 feet 5 inches tall at its maximum height, but it is shorter than that at some points. And it's only about 6 feet 11 inches wide. So it's a pretty small tunnel. And you basically go down this very steep slope, and then you hit some bedrock, and then you go along that a little bit, and you get pretty close. 150 meters away from North Korea is the closest that we got.
Yeah, so they dug from the north to the south, and this was supposed to be one of their ways when they were going to infiltrate and invade the south through these tunnels. So Brittany mentioned it. The person who let South Korea know was a defector who got through, and the only reason why he knew is he was one of the engineers building the tunnels. So when he got out, he told them, hey, they have these tunnels. And South Korea, of course, has discovered only a handful of the many that the gentleman claims that they've dug in there. And this is the point where you could technically get the closest to North Korea, but you can't see it because you're underground. Eventually, where the actual border is, they have put up a cement wall, so there is no going through on there. But you get to a point where they finally wall you off and say, this is the closest we're going to allow you, even being underground. So we got closer to North Korea when we were underground than we did above in the observation. But that's just really cool to see the lengths that any country is going to go to. I'm not saying right or wrong, but just in terms of a military tactic, digging underground and doing all this stuff. So we got to go in there and check that out. I think
How was it as a tall person?
It was terrible as a tall person because you mentioned it was 6'5" at its highest, but that is probably a low average of points where it's 6'5". I had to bend a good amount of the way making my way through, which becomes quite uncomfortable at some point in time because who likes to walk in a bending motion? I had to do that for quite a bit of time. Kind of sucked, but still cool nevertheless when you take into perspective what that actually is that you are in.
Yeah, I think we were allowed to go 350 meters into the tunnel. Is that right, Jamal?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't remember specifically.
So a lot of that Jamal was ducking for and hunched over, and he said he was very uncomfortable. And most of the time, I was able to stand upright. So
Brittany barely had to duck. They give you helmets on there. You need them. Because I hit my head a couple times, and even Julie said, oh, are you going to hit your head more times than you think? Not to me, but just in general to everybody. And I said to myself when she said that, I'm not going to hit my head. I'm not going to be one of those people. I'll be mindful about it. And sure enough, I hit my head so many times, and thankfully I had the helmet. But I'll tell you what, when I hit my head, it was because I was ducked down and I was looking up to see, hey, is it okay to actually lift my head? And in the moments of just trying to get a view, that's when dumbass me hit my head, looking up at that point in time. But still pretty cool to get to the barrier where they seal off going to the north.
So at this point, too, they have a gift shop. So we were able to buy North Korean brandy at this stop because North and South Korea do have a little bit of a trade going on. And then we were also able to buy some ginseng red wine. So we picked that up there, too.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, I think the ginseng red wine, it's grown in the DMZ, but not from North Korea. But the brandy that I picked up is actually from North Korea. And so I'm in the debate right now. Am I even going to drink this? I mean, I'm not expecting anything special from North Korean brandy, and that could be a terrible stereotype to have. I don't know. It could be delicious, right? But at the same time, it's do I keep it and never drink it as a novelty? Or do I open it and be like, yeah, I'm having North Korean brandy? I just think it's so unique because it's literally known as a hermit nation, meaning they don't really have a lot of contact with other people, diplomatic relations. So you don't really ever get products, goods, or services from there. So I have a unique item sitting in my house on my bar right now, and I'm still in the debate of if I'm gonna to drink that or not.
I think you need to open it up and try it.
You think so?
Have you ever tried anything from North Korea? Probably not.
I have not. And she was even saying they sell cigarettes there. I was even of the thought process, should I buy a pack of cigarettes from North Korea too? I think that would even have been cool, but I did not do that. But yeah, you're probably right. I will open it because I don't think it's going to have any monetary value of, oh, I've never opened this. It's just something that's cool, to say I have it.
And then the last stop on the tour was to the village. You could either go explore the village or you could go into the market. So the people that live in the village do not have to serve in the military because they're living pretty much in a military zone. They also do not have to pay taxes. So the products in the market are very affordable. So Julie said, if you follow me into the market, I will show you the Korean skincare routine. And I was like, yes, I am here for it. So she went and showed us the cleansers, the toners, the serums, the gold ampules, the face masks, the way that she uses them. And so I said, sign me up. And I bought every single thing that she recommended. I liked, though, that she said, if you were only going to get one thing from this, I would recommend the gold ampule. And if you were going to get a second thing, she said, I think it was the serum. So she wasn't like pushy and like, you have to get everything. She was like, if you really only need to get one or two items, focus on these. But here's my recommendation on all of them. And like Jamal said earlier, she does K-pop tours, skincare tours. So I would go back and do something like that too in the future.
Let's not forget to link her Instagram page in the show notes here too, because she really does have a good Instagram page. And she even said that if we know people, have them reach out to her direct, because of course people could book this DMZ tour through Viator, which is what we did. Lots of people even booked it on Get Your Guide. But she said if you book tours direct with her, you can get better rates than going through vendors. So whatever you're interested in, we'll link that and be sure to reach out to her directly.
Squaddies, we will link that in the show notes. Our show notes are also on our website, travelsquadpodcast.com/episodes. Just type in the search bar whatever destination you're looking for, and the full blog post will come up with pictures. It also has links to hotels, itineraries, tours that we went on. Any of this personal contact information that we might mention in different episodes can all be found on our website at all times.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
So once we got back to Seoul, I really wanted to go to this village called Bukchon Hanok. And it's a traditional Korean village with hundreds of well-preserved hanoks, which is a traditional Korean-style house. They're made with tile roofs and underfloor heating that date back to the Joseon dynasty from like 1392 to 1887. So the homes are wooden houses, tiled roofs, stone floors, and some of them are still used as residences, but many of them have been turned into galleries, craft shops, cultural centers, and tea houses. So I really wanted to go and do a traditional tea house. So I found one, and you take off your shoes at the entrance. They put your shoes on a rack for you. They lead you inside, and you sit on the ground on like a small cushion at a table, and they serve you some of the teas that they have there along with traditional Korean snacks.
Was there any corn tea involved?
No corn tea here. Not that I saw. They had premium teas and classic Korean teas, both hot and cold. I got an iced flower tea. It was gorgeous. You would have loved it, Kim. It would have been right up your alley. And it tasted good. And Jamal got a traditional hot green tea.
It was a cold day. You know, when we were in Seoul, it was very, very cold. Colder than it was in Hong Kong, and definitely colder than what it was when we finally made our way to Japan. So when Brittany said she's getting a cold tea, I'm like, you're crazy, man. I'm getting a hot tea. But she wanted to try a hot and a cold. Of course, we did do a little bit of switch. But what's really funny is when Brittany said, oh, you know, they take your shoes for you, traditional, you know, you're sitting on the floor on a pillow. No. They really try to take your shoes for you. We started taking it off, and then as we were taking it off, the lady was like, no, that's my job. Like, she almost got upset that we were taking off our own shoes. She wanted to take it off for us, put it in the container along the side for us for when we were to leave. But I think it was really cool going to this traditional tea house in this historic village. If anybody has ever been to Japan, when you're in Kyoto, you know, you have those historic buildings that date back centuries. This is in a building that dates back centuries, was a tea house. There's shops here, yes, to a degree commercialized now with the tourism, just to bring people to the historic village, but people still live in there too in these classic homes. And this was a fun experience all around.
Yeah, we got these sweet honey rice cakes that were really good. I'd never tried anything like that before. And then we got these dried tangerines topped with honey. They were very interesting because they really reminded me like of a honeycomb, but they paired really well with the tea, and the dried tangerines were on recommendation from one of the workers in the tea house. So that's what we got there. If I were to go back to Seoul, I'd want to go to a different one. And actually, I would even go back to this one because the experience was so good. It's very quiet in there, very zen. You just really get to relax and have a moment. And from there, we walked to a palace.
Yes, it's called the Gyeongbokgung Palace. And again, forgive the pronunciation. We hope we're saying it to our best. We Googled how to say it phonetically, but of course, I'm sure you can wager Korean is not our native language. But this palace is very close to the Bokchon Hanok village. So it was just a quick little walk. It's open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It costs 3,000 won to get in, which equivalent conversion is about $2. So whenever we talk about money and equivalencies, of course, we're talking about it in current exchange rate. If you happen to be listening to this at a later time, may very well be different. But you can also do a guided tour if you want. The guided tour of this palace is an hour and a half, and it takes place at 11, 1:30, and 3:30 in English.
And the palace is one of the most iconic and historic landmarks in Seoul, South Korea. And it served as the main royal residence for over 500 years and is considered the most magnificent of the 5 grand palaces in Seoul. Its name actually means Palace of the Shining Happiness. So it was really beautiful to go through the gates, go see the pavilion, see the wood carvings, seeing how they're painted, that traditional architecture. So we went and explored the grounds here.
And you said it, Brittany, this was the main royal residence for over 500 years of the Joseon dynasty. I didn't even know this until we were in South Korea, that they had a royal family at one point in time. I guess that makes sense. I feel like a lot of countries back in the day, of course, did. But for over 500 years, that's how old this palace is. It was built in the year 1395. So really, really old.
And I told Jamal too that while we were in South Korea, at some point I really wanted to have Korean barbecue. So after we explored the palace, that's what we went and got for dinner, Korean barbecue.
And is it like it is here with unlimited meats and all the sides?
So unlimited meats, definitely. All of the sides, yes. I will say, even though here in the U.S., Korean barbecue, of course, they have authentic sides of what you would experience in Korea, I think they have more options here in the US, and of course certain things that cater to a more American palate, whereas I feel like at least the one place that we got Korean barbecue, they had a more limited side selection and of course a more localized taste that's not catered to an American palate. But what I really did like about it, and I'm going to mention the name of where we went here very shortly, is a lot of the sides, they talked about how they should be prepped and prepared with the meat that you're eating, what sauce it should go with, how you should wrap it. You know, sometimes they had like a little thin sliced radish. So like, oh, it's good wrapped with this meat, with this sauce, or here's lettuce, wrap it in the lettuce with some kimchi. So a lot of that was more so the sides than the typical sides that you would see see here in the U.S. at a Korean barbecue.
I feel like in the U.S. at the Korean barbecue, you order what you want, you cook it, and that's the interaction. But here, they actually would like come flip the meat for us. They would come cut it up in pieces for us. They would tell us what sides to use and how to eat it traditionally. And I really liked that. They were actually really involved. And I don't know if it was just because we were tourists or if they do that all the time, but it just gave a different perspective on it. And the meat was fantastic.
Yeah, and forgive the pronunciation. The name of the restaurant was the Muhangam-dong Korean Barbecue, and it was located in the Myeongdong district, which is a very famous and popular district for tourists, shopping, etc. But a lot of the meats that they had here were pork belly, different cuts of beef, and of course those side dishes. But the restaurant that we went to, again, forgive the pronunciation, Muhangam-dong, had a 4.9 rating on Google with over 1,800 views. So if something has that many reviews and is at a 4.9, not a 4.8, not a 4.7, which is still highly rated, or even I'm solid with a 4.5, 4.9 with that many, you know you're getting consistency, right? And a lot of the reviews even described what we mentioned to you, where people were like, the workers here speak English, they'll actually teach you how to eat it properly, or traditionally you could eat it however you want, but tell you what pairs with what, how to do this and that. So I thought it was a great, more interactive experience than a normal Korean barbecue, because you're also getting a little bit of culture taught with you on how it's traditionally eaten by them.
Kim, have you had soju?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever had it.
Think of sake, but soju is like the Korean version of like alcohol shots. And I know you're not a shots person, but typically soju is fruit flavored. So it's not.
Oh, then maybe I have had it, because I've had some fruity sake stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've had sake shots twice in the last month.
What?
Whoa, look at you, Kim.
If you guys haven't tried soju, I would highly recommend it. It was funny because when we were on the bus with Julie was like, you can go grab a beer, but don't go grab a soju, because then I don't want to deal with drunk people all day, you know, because soju will get you drunk quickly because it tastes so good. It's so fruity. We got green grape. It was a fantastic flavor, but I've tried other flavors as well, and I haven't come across a bad soju yet.
Yeah, so we were drinking beer and soju while we were having our Korean barbecue. I mean, if we were to go back to Korea, I would want to try a different place, but I love this place so much. I would go back here and just eat here again. I really enjoyed it that much.
And we decided to end the night at Seoul Tower, which is right next to that restaurant we were at in that area, the Myeongdong district. So we just walked up to there, and then you could take a cable car to the top. You can also hike it, but it is a very steep hike.
Yeah, and Seoul Tower is atop the Namsan Mountain, and it provides panoramic views of Seoul's skyline. So originally this tower was built as a radio transmission tower back in the 60s, but it has become a popular tourist destination, of course, to just go to the top for the views. But the cool thing about it is you can choose to go into the tower or just go up to the level where the tower is, but not go inside of it. And you could still get good views either way. So we went up at night. We were debating going into the tower, but Brittany had read online, if you go into the tower at night and take photos, because of the light that reflects off of the tower itself while you're in it, it kind of ruins the pictures a little bit. You don't really get as good of ones. So we said to ourselves, no need to really go inside. The observation level that they have out here is sufficient enough. And we enjoyed our time just going to get an overlook of the city.
Yeah, so we rode the Namsan cable car up. We enjoyed the views. And then they also have like a portion where it's like a locks of love padlocks attached to the fences there too. So makes for a cool picture. So go enjoy that. And then you can either hike down or take the cable car back down as well.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're going with somebody you love and care about, bring a lock and add it to it. You know, that's something that Brittany and I have never done, is take a lock to places where they're known to have the locks where you put them. You know, they have the One Bridge in Paris, other places, but I didn't know that they have it here. But maybe one of these days we should just carry around a lock, and when we come across one, have it at the ready.
I guess so. So that really concluded our night. This was going to be our last night in Seoul, because the next day we were going to be leaving for Tokyo. But I really wanted to go to the Jongmyo Shrine. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it was only about a 10-minute walk from our hotel. we got there first thing in the morning. Our plan was to get there first thing in the morning, tour it, and then get Korean fried chicken before we left for the airport. But during the week, they only do guided tours. They don't let you just roam around as you would like to. So we had to wait for a guided tour. This in the morning, it started to be where Jamal wasn't having a freak out, but things were starting to build. So, we get there and they're like, no, you can't just wander the grounds. You can take the guided tour. It's at 10.
Well, we got there at 9 when it opens, but the first English tour isn't until 10 o'clock. So our plan again was get there at 9, be done in an hour, have enough time to check out of our hotel and go to where we wanted to go to try a different Korean fried chicken. Not from Kyochon, but a different spot that's, again, one of the top 3 places listed. So I'm worried about time it takes to get to the airport because
you need that chicken too.
I need that chicken. We want to try it. Yeah, absolutely. So point being, we get there. They tell us 10. Then Brittany's unsure what she wants to do, looking at me as if I have a choice in the matter, pretending I do, but then ultimately decides, oh, we're going to go ahead do the tour.
What's more important to you, this shrine or fried chicken? And I was like, this shrine. And then he does his classic Jamal scoff. He's like,
oh, please.
And shaking his head like he's so disappointed in my choice. And I was like, we've already had fried chicken. He is like, I skipped breakfast because I was counting on that fried chicken.
Yeah, because now we didn't know if we would have time to get it afterwards because of when we agreed we have to catch the metro to go to the airport. And I did not have as big of an exasperated sigh as Brittany made it out. It was silent and I rolled my eyes. I accepted the decision. And then she eggs me on, which brings it out more. But I did not make a verbal sound at her decision.
So we hung out until the 10 o'clock tour. And this is a World Heritage Site. It's one of the most significant cultural and historical landmarks in Seoul. It was established way back in 1394, and it was built to honor and enshrine the spirits of the kings and queens of the royal family during that time.
Was it worth it?
I will say part of it was under construction, but I did learn a lot about Korean history, and I did really appreciate that. I'm not a big history buff, but when I'm in a country and on a tour, I love kind of soaking up that knowledge, and being there in person brings it to life. Like if I read it in a book, I'm going to forget it. But if you're there in person and learning about it, it just sticks with you, right? Very beautiful grounds. So we did learn a lot about that. We learned about their ceremonies that are held every year where they make offerings to the royal ancestors. And so it was just a lot about South Korean history and tradition. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah, more particularly the royalty side of things, because even though there is no longer a royal family, there still are living royal descendants because they ended it, within the last 100+ years, not necessarily too long ago in that time frame of things. So of course there still are descendants, and those descendants of the royal family are the ones that still conduct the annual ceremonies to this day. So it was very interesting to see. I like history, so I thought it was cool in and of itself. But of course, the shrine, the main one, was under construction, so we really didn't get to see it. We only got the history lesson. And of course, we saw lots of temples, and we're going to be seeing temples and shrines in Japan. So that's kind of where I was like, I'm leaning towards fried chicken then at that point. But then we got done with the tour, and then we're like, all right, we're going to try to make it to the fried chicken place that we wanted to go to called BBQ. And we found a spot. I had trouble with the app trying to pinpoint how to get there. So that took a little bit of time, killed time, which is eating into our time to get there, come back, grab our stuff, get to the metro with the adequate time to get to the airport. Finally, after frustration, got the app to work a little bit. We made it to the spot. It's apparently in a commercial building, and then we cannot find the restaurant whatsoever. That commercial building also happens to be attached to a hotel. They did not speak well enough English for me to translate my thoughts to them. And of course, in fairness, I'm going to say it. I don't speak Korean, so I couldn't translate to them what we were looking for.
But there are apps these days where you speak into them. They've been around for a long time. Don't you use apps like that?
Well, I do, but I also showed them on the map, like where I'm trying to go to, and actually like barbecue, like the images of it. And it's a chain, so it's very well known. It's almost like if I was to show somebody like a golden arch from McDonald's and that McDonald's was in that hotel or complex, someone would know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. They said it was closed. And don't know if it was closed or not because, again, this is like a mall area connected to a hotel. And on Google Maps, it didn't show up at all. And it only showed up in like one of the maps that we were looking at. So was it truly closed? We don't really know. We couldn't find it. We didn't really have time to dive into it. So Jamal and I are arguing back and forth about what we wanted to do. This is a chain restaurant. So we knew that there was one in another district, but it's farther from our hotel. So I said, let's just try to go there. But then I was like, time-wise, it would really not work out. So we decided, you know what, let's just go back to the hotel. Jamal's like, this is it. We're just going back to the hotel.
No, Brittany asked me, and I hate really fighting about the freakouts, but I really feel like I need to defend myself when Brittany over-exaggerates it. She asked what I wanted to do at this point, and I said, I just want to go to the hotel, get our luggage, go to the airport, there's a lounge, and we'll get food in the lounge. I said, I'm over it. I don't want to risk not getting to the airport on time, checking in. We don't know how long it's going to take to go through immigration to check ourselves out since we're flying internationally, if we're going to get lost on the metro, whatever. And then Brittany asked what I wanted to do, and then she refused to follow the answer and directive that I gave.
Let's just go back to Kyochon, which actually ended up being our saving grace. We walked back to Kyochon, and guess what? There was a BBQ Village right next door.
Village?
And so it had different menu items, but it still had the fried chicken. So we were like, yes. So we went there and we tried BBQ and had our last Korean fried chicken of the trip.
So we got to try it, but it was just a little bit of back and forth, more me concerned about the timing issue and then just ready to go to the airport, frustration with the app not working. Again, Brittany over-exaggerating the freak out, I'm going to go ahead and say,
no,
but nevertheless, that's
I have
happened.
a vision of what this looks like in my head. Because there was one time years ago we were coming back like on an early Monday morning to get to work, and you two got into it in the airport, and I saw you from across the room. Brittany's head is bobbing, and you two are talking back at each other. That's what I see for this experience.
That's exactly
right. But do you see what she said? She said Brittany's head is bobbing, like she was the one doing the talking. She didn't say she saw Jamal being expressive.
Scoffing.
Yeah, exactly.
So based off of Brittany's head bobbing, I'm just going to say it was Brittany who was initiating. But neither here nor there. You squatties can decide. Chime in. I want to know, does Brittany overreact, or is Jamal just really a freak out person? And I freak out, but over-exaggerated.
Yeah, we'll put a poll on the episode.
Let's do it. We're going to do it.
Summer's here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Walmart Business saves you time, money, and hassle, which means you can focus on what really matters. Like putting the money you save back into what you do. Spending more time training your team, filling orders, and finding new clients. Anything and everything, right down to, oh, that's the one, choosing the best hold music. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
But that was our time in Seoul. Brittany just kept saying she really loved her time and experience here, and I enjoyed it too, but she just kept saying she was like mesmerized with it. And I asked her, what did you like so much about it? And what was your answer as to why you liked Korea so much?
The full day that we had, it was a perfect day. Nothing really went wrong. We got to do the DMZ tour, which was one of my highlights. We got to do the traditional Korean tea. That was also one of the highlights that I really wanted to do. We got to go to a palace. We got Korean barbecue. It was like everything lined up perfectly that day, and everything was like 10 out of 10. There was nothing wrong with that time there.
Beautiful.
I feel like if I had spent more time, maybe I wouldn't have such a strong opinion about it. And I'm not sure, but I would go back because there are other parts of South Korea I want to explore. So we did make it to the airport. And I just want to give a side note that during this trip, we flew Korean Airlines twice, once from Hong Kong to Seoul and once from Seoul to Tokyo. And very impressed with Korean Airlines, really liked their service. I really liked the meals that they provided. One flight was 2 hours, another was 3 hours. We got full meals on both flights. The longer flight had a pillow and a blanket and entertainment. And I feel like American Airlines should follow suit.
Yeah, and for sitting in an economy, adequate leg space, like really a lot of leg space for just regular economy. So really enjoyed our Korean Air experience. And I guess all the more reason to go back. Kim, you want to go? Brittany wants to go. I said I would go again. Let's fly Korean Air straight to Seoul and have a good squad trip out there.
I'm
ready to do it. And, you know, we only ate Korean fried chicken and Korean barbecue. That's something that Brittany said. You mentioned it earlier, Kim. You want to eat like some bibimbap. We didn't eat bibimbap. And what else did you say you wanted to eat Korean food-wise?
They have these desserts that are shaped like a fish. They're a pastry, but they're filled with like different types of creams or ice creams.
Ooh.
And we actually have a shop in San Diego. So I've had one before, but I really want one from the source.
Well, that's not what you told me the first time, although I don't disagree with that. And it's bulgogi.
Oh, yes. I wanted more bulgogi.
So we have a lot of Korean food that we did not try. All the more reason to go back and enjoy ourselves in Seoul and other places of South Korea.
Before we end this episode, we do have 2 questions of the week. Both of them are from Aaron from Napa. Aaron is asking, how many days do you need in Seoul?
So we only spent 2 nights, and I think that was a mistake. But, you know, we were just fitting it in. I would recommend 4 full days. There were things that we didn't see. There was more historical sites. There was a market that we missed. There's a national park that's pretty close to Seoul that I would have loved to go to and just kind of hiked and explored. And there's a famous library there as well. So I feel like 4 days is enough time to give you all of the main highlights.
And that's just Seoul. Is there stuff to do outside of Seoul? You mentioned this national park, but is it worth going to other towns or cities?
So one of the other famous places in South Korea is called Busan. It's a southern city along the coast, and it's known to be very popular, very nice city. So even our tour guide, Julie, was saying, if you go to Busan, it's going to be nice anytime, but you should try to go during spring and summer because it's along the water and you would want to do that. I don't know if it's a real nice beachy place, but still just if you're along the water, you want it to be a lot more temperate and enjoyable weather for that. But Busan is known to be a great place in South Korea too. But I think South Korea probably has a lot of nature places. Even as we were flying over country before we got over the ocean on our way to Japan, I was just seeing lots of mountains, things covered in snow, and I was very intrigued about what was below me.
Our second question from Aaron from Napa is, what is the best area to stay in?
I would say any area that's central with close access to bus or metro. We did stay outside of a metro at the Moxie Hotel. One of the reasons why we didn't use the bus is because we didn't have a T-Money card and we wouldn't have been able to ride the bus unless we paid with cash. So that's why we focused on the metro and the Kakao app. But we stayed in Insadong, which is a really good area to stay. So any hotel in the Insadong area. But the Myeongdong area is also another great area to stay, which is also outside of another metro station and really close to Seoul Tower.
And that's where we got the Korean barbecue in that area. And the subway and metro line that we met Julie at for our DMZ tour was in that region as well. So I would say those 2 places are probably some of the more centrally located, popular places to stay.
Squaddies, that's our episode on South Korea. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. Keep the adventures going with us on all the socials at Travel Squad Podcast.
If you found the information in this episode to be useful, or if you thought we were just plain funny, please be sure to share it with a friend that would enjoy it too. Please subscribe, rate and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
And Squaddies, sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on everything happening with the podcast and hear our latest tips, advice, and amazing adventures we have in store for you.
Bye
Squaddies.